Started. So thank you for joining us today. We're excited to bring you our next presenter in our quarterly writing workshop series. Today's presentation is about satire, and it's with Jason Hensel. If you have questions during the workshop, please post them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the program. So let me start by introducing our presenter. Jason is a graduate of the Dallas Comedy House and has been trained by performers and writers from Kids in the Hall, Key and Peele, Workaholics, The Colbert Show, Saturday Night Live, Mad TV, The Second City, and I.O. Chicago. His humor pieces have appeared in Slackjaw, The Haven, and Jane Austen's Wastebasket. So welcome. So glad to have you. I'm going to turn the presentation over to you and turn off my camera, and I'll come back at the end to do questions.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining me and today to talk about satire and humor writing. This is my first time to do an online class, so please give me that grace if you can. So a little bit about my background. As Jennifer said, I've been trained at the Dallas Comedy House, and I graduated there through the improv program, but I've also written sketch shows and humor pieces for the blog, the Dallas Comedy House blog when it was around. Some of the people who have come through have worked for Saturday Night Live and Colbert Report and Kids in the Hall, and I've trained through them through writing classes and workshops. And so a little bit of all this things I'm going to talk about today are kind of an accumulation of everything that I've learned through these people and through other online courses I've taken. I'm going to try to talk a little bit slower, and I usually talk really fast, so hopefully I'll slow down, and if you have any questions, though, please just let me know, let Jennifer know, and we'll answer those at the end. And once again, I want to thanks to the Fort Worth Library, Jennifer and my friend Teresa for setting this all up, and I guess we'll go ahead and start. I just want to start by saying the goals for this workshop are, this is going to be a very broad general overview of satire and humor. Normally, these classes would be 6 to 8 weeks long, and you would meet for 2 to 3 hours at a time. You would have homework and come back, and it'd be a lot more face-to-face time, a lot more interaction with the other students. Since this is online and we have less than an hour, I will just give a broad overview. I'm going to talk a lot, so please forgive me. It's going to be a very talky, TED Talky type thing to do today. I hope to give you some strategies to focus your pieces or to make them fuller. And I'm going to give you a list of where you can publish your pieces, and I'll put in the chat at the end, I'll put a couple of links that steer you directly toward, makes it easy for you to publish your pieces. So with all that said, let's go ahead and start. And like any good TED Talk, I am going to start with a definition. In fact, I'm going to start with 2 definitions. And the first is, what is satire? And satire, the Collins Dictionary defines satire is the use of humor or exaggeration in order to show how foolish or wicked some people's behavior or ideas are. Now, Merriam-Webster says that satire is a literary work holding up human vices and follies to ridicule or scorn. So basically, you could say that humor is it's kind of the comedy of outrage, but it's also the comedy of emotion. You could be frustrated, maybe comedy of frustration, the comedy of passion, the comedy of fear. It's something that you're emotionally connected to. The Greeks have employed satire in their writings from the beginning of time. Romans employed it. It wouldn't even be heard of that a caveman probably used satire. Michael Honan, he's an author, he wrote, "Who can doubt but that our earliest ancestors did it, prancing around a campfire, lampooning some pompous hunter who decided he'd show everyone he could kill a mastodon by himself and succeeded so well that it fell on top of him." So it's a little bit about the history of satire and what it means. Real quick, If you have a piece of paper or some paper, please make sure you have that available. We're going to do a couple writing exercises, very short writing exercises, because I feel like if you're going to write in workshop, you should write some, even if it's short. So I just want to go ahead and throw that out there. You can go ahead and grab that while you can. And I won't be I'm going to use humor and satire interchangeably a lot during this workshop. But you got to remember that not all humor is satire, but not all satire is humorous either. So, and sometimes they cross streams a lot, and sometimes it's hard to tell what is satire and what is just a humor piece. We're going to focus primarily on satire because that is topical, and that's usually what people, when they think of satire, they think The Onion, they think the Colbert Report. So I think something that's very topical and top of mind and in the zeitgeist of the universe right now. It can be an evergreen topic. For example, you can comment on cliches or tropes that are universally known. Satire, please underline this. Please write this down, underline it. Punches up or at itself. It never punches down. Satire always punches up. It takes to task those who are in power. If you're writing a piece where you're punching down, you're not really writing satire. You're writing something that's, I don't know. It's not going to be fun. Okay, I'll just say that. Some examples of satire are, Jonathan Swift's Gulliver Travels. David Sedaris writes satire. The Onion, the Colbert Report I mentioned, South Park, The Office. This is Spinal Tap. Those are literary and media examples of satire. And real quick, if you're in the chat, type out some other examples of satire that you can think of, and I'll give you a second to write those out. And Jennifer will read those back, and let's just see what other examples we have out there. Mm-hmm.
So our first one is I Think You Should Leave.
The great comedy show on Netflix. Yes, I Think You Should Leave, with Tim Robinson.
Trevor Noah.
Oh yeah, The Daily Show. That's another great example.
Somebody else wrote, I hadn't thought of Spinal Tap as satire, but yes, of course.
Yes, Christopher Guest is great at taking satirical looks at cultures, specifically like Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, The Spinal Tap. Mm-hmm.
So we got an SNL.
SNL, of course. SNL is it's a satirical / parody look of television.
Henry Alford.
No, I'm not familiar with Henry Alford. I will write that one down though, so I can look up Henry Alford. See, that's why I do this, so I can learn from you just as much as you learn from me. Now, I mentioned Saturday Night Live is satire and also a parody about television. And so you might be wondering, what's the difference between satire and parody? Well, satire uses humor, both use humor, or can be humorous. But parody primarily, it mimics something familiar to amuse an audience, like impersonations or songs. I mean, think of Weird Al Yankovic. He does parody of songs. Parody does rely on an audience recognizing what is being mimicked, but only at a surface level. Its purpose is to really generate laughs rather than deeper understanding. Satire, though, primarily ridicules humor or social flaws to provoke an audience to challenge its viewpoints. Its focus is often larger in scope. It wants the audience to better understand humanity and society. It relies on an audience recognizing the problem being ridiculed or a systematic problem underlying the ridicule with humor. So that's kind of the difference there. Just think of satire as something that's deeper, has more subtext. Parody is very surface level. Think Baldwin doing Trump impersonations, or anybody doing impersonations. And like I said, Weird Al Yankovic, the songs. Satire, you want subtext. Now, subtext doesn't always have to be immediately recognized by the reader, but there should be some kind of subtext, some kind of commentary you're making about your piece. We're going to talk about some terms here. One term to remember is a term called a target. And that is the institution or the trope or the cliche or the person your piece is criticizing or commenting about. There's also a comedy premise. A premise is the unusual thing that you will heighten out of reality. For anyone who's ever taken an improv class, you might recognize this term as the game or the game of the scene. For the comedy premise, you want to reflect on reality but not actually presenting reality itself. And then also point of view. And this is what you, the writer, the author, is saying to readers about a topic. And it's best to begin your point of view with the statement, I feel or I believe. Because I can guarantee you, even if we all had the same topic to write about, every piece will be different if you wrote I feel or I believe at the beginning of your headline. We would all come up with completely different satirical pieces. I promise you. So, how to write satire, the gist of this workshop. So we talked about premise. You do want to have an original and clear premise. Like I said, the premise is the main joke or the game of the piece. Your audience should be able to tell what is funny about your story from the beginning. And also, it's best to have one premise, not multiple ones. You want to focus on one object of ridicule. I mean, too many ideas will make your piece cloudy or burdensome to the reader. They won't know where to focus their attention. It's almost like if you watch Top Chef, the judges constantly tell the contestant chefs to edit down their dishes. Sometimes these chefs, they want to show their skill set and everything. They throw in every little piece of ingredient they can. They bring it up to the judges, and the judges like, if you just cut 3 of these pieces out, you have a winning dish, but you added 1 too many pieces, and now you're getting sent home. Think of it that way. Just you want to keep your focus on one thing. It'll make your piece a lot stronger too if you just keep that zero in on that focus. In comedy, you may have heard about the rule of 3, and I don't know why 3 things are funny, but it seems to be there's always 3 beats to a scene, there's 3 beats to a piece, there's 3 beats to even like a sitcom, a 30-minute sitcom. The first 10 minutes is the first beat, the second 10 minutes the second beat, and the third beat is the last 10 minutes. It's just I don't know, it's a classic 3-beat thing. I don't know why. Well, one of the examples we use in the improv world is Starbucks surgery hell. So starting off at something at Starbucks, and you up the game to surgery. That's a little more. That's heightened a little more, and then you're in hell. That's the final step. And so what you want for your pieces, you want them to heighten. You want them to start. At the beginning of the piece, you have your premise, you have your joke here, and as you go along, you're gonna heighten this joke into absurdity almost. And so by the time you're at the end of the piece, you're totally out of reality. You're totally absurd, outrageous. It's by the end of the piece, the reader should know that this is a satirical piece, that this person wasn't serious about this, or, oh, this is what they mean by it. They're being very sarcastic. I get it now. I mentioned the point of view. Always have a strong point of view. What I like to do is sometimes take the view of a narrator that you don't agree with. So, trying to name an example here. If you want to, if you don't, I'm just looking at a plant. If you're someone who hates plants, you don't like plants in the office. You think plants are detrimental to your airspace. They give you allergies, things like that. you could take the point of view of someone who loves plants and talk about that and just heighten it out of reality to the point of like when the person's done reading, they're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe plants are bad for for this office. So that's another point of view. Another point of view I like to take is Simon Rich. He's a writer. He's written for Saturday Night Live, written several books. I read an interview. He likes to take the point of view of an object or an animal that you don't necessarily think would be the point of view. So, for example, if you have a story about a boy and a grasshopper, well, you might take the point of view of the boy. Usually most people do because it's the human, it's easier to write from. But Simon Rich says, why not take the point of view from the grasshopper? Or even more, take the point of view of the leaf that the grasshopper is eating, something like that. Kind of switch it up a little bit. It kind of makes it more fun to write. I wrote a piece, the piece that was published in Slackjaw, from the point of view of a bag of chips that was stuck in the vending machine, and sad that the bag wasn't going to get to go with the person who chose him. So it was fun to write from that point of view. And then another thing I really, really push whenever I teach improv to people, and I also push this in writing whenever I work with my writing group, is specifics, because specificity, which is hard to say, specificity is funny. It really is. It's also more memorable to the readers. I mean, for example, I always use there's a difference between, there's a big difference in a character who likes just plain yellow mustard compared to someone who likes Grey Poupon. I mean, if you write, just a tiny detail like that can tell you a lot about a character without you having to spell everything out, without having to say that this person is a snob or this person is a British and drives a Rolls Royce or anything like that. You can just say this, he ordered Grey Poupon for dinner. That tells you a lot about the character right there. And just so kind of a quick recap, your satire piece should have a clear and original premise, plus a strong point of view, and plus an interesting or unusual details or specifics. And that's just a little bit of background there. So we're going to do, I'm leading into like a little bit of a writing part here. So one question that we people have asked is, sometimes they have a premise or they have a headline, but they have nowhere else to go. They're like, oh, this is a great headline. I don't know how to fill out 300 to 800 words for this. So how do you expand that into a fuller piece? So let's do a little exercise to help with that. If you already have a premise, great. If not, we're going to brainstorm. I want you to write down about 5 or so premises. They don't have to be funny, but make it something that you like to read in a newspaper or magazine. Kind of make it a headline, or make it 5 things that annoy you or frustrate you. So I want you to just we're going to take 3 minutes. I just want you to write down. You can even write down, like I said, start with I feel or I believe, and just write them down as fast as you can. But like I said, don't worry about being funny. Just write down something that you would see in a headline in a newspaper or magazine. And I'm going to go ahead and start the clock, and we'll take 3 minutes to do that. So, and go. About 30 more seconds on this exercise. And you don't, I'll let you know, we're not going to be reading these to each other. You don't have to post them in the chat. And just, these are for you. This is your own personal exercise. All right, that's 3 minutes. Pens down, hands up. I always say I'm Top Chef. Sorry, I'm a lot of Top Chef jokes today. I've been catching up with that. All right, so now that you have a few premises, I want you to pick one that's your favorite, one that really speaks to you, resonates with, that pulls a uh, pulls an emotion out of you. I want you to pick one. And I want you to look at that headline, and I want you to look at it and see, are there two words? There should be two words that stick out for you. I mean, if not, just pick out two words that you think are the strongest in your headline. And I want you to take a piece of paper, and I want you to put one word on the left side and the other word on the right side, draw a line down the middle. And we're going to do a little word association. Okay. I want you to come up with many words that relate to each of those words that you've chosen. For example, if one of your words is corn, then you might come up with other words like vegetable, farm, oil, candy, Thanksgiving, butter, shuck, and things like that. So I want to take another 3 minutes, and I want you to just go ahead and just do a quick word association on the two words, and just go ahead and write those down. Start in. And now. And there are 30 seconds or so to go. All right, and that's your 3 minutes. So hopefully it worked. This is how sometimes I come up with ideas that help fill out my stories. It really helps to start getting the brain lubricated and figuring out what other ideas can I get out of this headline to make it stand on its and give it more substance. I recently came up with a premise and about the Green New Deal and LEDs, and I didn't know where else to go with it. So I did this exercise and just wrote down the Green New Deal and LEDs, and just wrote down every single thing that came to my mind about each of those two. And it really helped me fill out and create a 500-word piece, because like, oh, okay. I can talk about AOC. I can talk about, wind power, solar power. That's a Green New Deal. And how does that relate to LEDs and light and illumination and filaments, filaments, Edison, things like that. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. It's an exercise to help you start kind of piecing together, and then you start kind of crossing like, oh, I see this word here really matches well with this one. You can kind of start working on a paragraph for that. So that's just one exercise that really helps me, and I go back to time and time again to really fill out my pieces. That's all. I wanted to talk about another. We're not going to do any exercise on this one, but this is really gets to the heart of satire, since satire is primarily topical. And you really want to get these pieces in related to maybe the news that's happening within the last 24 or 48 hours. And I can't express this strongly enough. You need to read the news. You need to be up to date on what's going on in the world. Pop culture, politics, science, religion, everything. You need to read the news to keep up with everything, especially if you want to write humor pieces and satire pieces. If you're a performer, improviser, you're an actor, whatever, because you're going to get ideas from all these different places just by keeping up with the news. And you've got to know, like for example, like there are two comedy greats just recently passed away. Who are those two people? They might, just knowing this might spur you to write a satirical piece or a humor piece about them, or in their voice. Just you've got to read the news, and you got to look for the stories that create a major reaction in yourself. Look for those stories that, like I said, really like make you angry or make you excited. It's not going to be any fun to read a piece that's just kind of blah, that has no point of view. So when you come across a news piece that really resonates with you and creates a strong emotion, immediately sit down and free write how you feel about it. And that goes back to how I feel. Just free write for like 3 or 5 minutes how you feel about it. Don't worry about it. No one's going to see it. And you should write with pen or pencil. There's something about writing with a writing utensil and not typing on a computer, where you just kind of write and you get less in your head about editing. At least I do. You just because when you're on a computer, you can always kind of backtrack and hit erase. And then when I'm writing, I'm just like scribbling and everything. So that's a good way to kind of get over the writer's block too. It's just a free write. Just don't worry. No one else is going to see this. This is just you. This is you kind of coalescing your thoughts in one piece. So once you get that down, you've read your one piece, and you read the story in the New York Times, go back and find 2 or 3 other stories that relate to that piece. So you look at another newspaper, maybe look in the Dallas Morning News, the Washington Post, Time Magazine, somebody else has a story about the same topic. Read those viewpoints. And then you can also do this, you can start clustering, gathering your specifics and start clustering around your premise. So say you have your premise right here in the circle, and you start kind of doing like lines out, and like maybe you read a quote in one piece and you're like, well, that's a funny quote. That's a weird quote. You might write that down. There's something else about the piece like piqued your interest. And so you'll write that down. You just kind of write this wheel of specifics, and you're going to start looking, just like we did with the other exercise, looking for patterns and associations with these. And this will help you break down a larger story into a smaller one and make your point of view stronger. So then you're gonna pick your target and your point of view, and you're gonna write that top across your page. Like who is your target and what is your point of view? And then I want you to pick a format. You can do a monologue, you can do a list, you can do a press release, you can do a product release, you can do a commercial piece, you can do a PSA. There's all sorts of different formats you could do. And the format is going to give you structure for your jokes. And it'll help you. It kind of also like box you in. I believe that creativity expands the more it's kind of compressed. Because when you have little room to move, you have to be creative to kind of get out of that box. And so I think that structure kind of gives you a box to write out of. And then after you get all that kind of worked up, you're going to start to form your titles. And the title is going to include like your format plus your comedic premise. So, you might say a list of blah, 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 or, dear constituents, blah, blah, blah. So, we know that that's going to be a speech from a politician. Then you're going to want to like test your titles and your premises by writing a few jokes for each of them. What kind of works with like, this title works best with this list of jokes. It's just kind of more free writing, and it's just kind of getting out of your head, just writing down the first things that come to you. And you're gonna, like I said, you're eventually work your story into like 3 kind of beats, and you're gonna heighten out of reality as you get closer and closer to the end. You're not trying to make this piece seem real. We don't need reality. This is humor. This is satire. We want to kind of be out of reality. And by the end, we want to get to an absurd place. Absurd place to make someone reconsider their thoughts about something even. And you're going to want to highlight, you want to see a mix of your absurd and your kind of, we call them the straight character, the straight character. And a scene usually has the absurd character and a straight character. You want the straight part of the story mixed with the absurd. I lost my train of thought there for a second. It's almost, that's what I was going to say. I was talking to a friend, and he mentioned about Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag, and one of my, I wrote to him, I said, I think that's what she does great, is she does kind of a roller coaster of emotion. She'll do something very serious and kind of get you and hook you in emotionally, and then she'll whiplash around and make it funny and turn you on your head, and then she'll come back to that. So that's kind of what you want to do with your piece. You want to like kind of set it up like here's the kind of the straight, the normal thing, and then kind of pull the rug out from under people with the absurd thing. And then once you finish your draft, anywhere from, and satirical pieces now run anywhere from 200 to 1,000 words, depending on the site, depending on the topic. Once you finish your draft, you want to do this in one sitting. And this kind of exercise should take you less than an hour to do, because you're reading your news piece, You're taking 3 to 5 minutes to write down your ideas, your thoughts about it. You're going back, you're reading a couple other pieces, and writing some titles out, you're clustering some words. You're taking all this time. This should take about 45, 50 minutes to do. Once you write in one sitting, it gives you that urgency, because satire can be about urgency. And you want that feeling, you want that energy. So once you've written your piece, you want to kind of back away from it. And the best way I sometimes back away from it is I have a writing group. I have some friends that I will send pieces to, and I'll say, here's my piece. Can you look at it? And if you've been working with a group for a while, they know your weaknesses. But if not, if it's someone new, you can say, are my jokes at the end of my paragraphs? Because you also want to keep your jokes at the end of your paragraphs. And so they'll look for things like that. Keeping jokes at the end of paragraphs, and it goes back to another strategy I learned in sketch writing. It's called, you want them to turn the page. So you want that kind of like that joke at the end of page one. You're like, what? And then so you'll turn the page, and so you want your jokes to be kind of in the paragraph, so the person will keep reading, like, oh, that was funny. I'll keep reading this next paragraph. Oh, that was even funnier. So like it goes back to heightening and just getting out of reality. It's heightening out of reality. And then once your friends get back to you, or maybe if you don't have any friends, just kind of step away, go take a shower, go mow the lawn, go eat dinner, put it away for a day or two, and then come back to it. Once again, if you're trying to get this on a timely schedule, you don't want to be away from it too long, but just enough to like clear it out of your head. So you can come back and you want to edit, and like I said, make sure your jokes are at the end, not in the middle. Make sure that the reader wants to continue reading every paragraph. Make sure you're going bigger and more absurd with each paragraph, because you can always dial it back. If you've gone to crazy town and your writer friends come back and say, this is over the top, you can always dial it back. It's easier to dial back. It's easier to cut words than it is to add words or to add absurdity. So that's just from a journalist point of view too. Always turn in more words than you need, because it's a lot easier on the editor to cut words than to have you come back and add 300 or 400 words. That's just another strategy right there for satire writing. Want to go over funny filters, and this is another strategy you can use, and it comes from Scott Dickers. He is the founder of The Onion, and he says that all humor uses at least one of these 11 funny filters, and you can use more than one funny filter, but he said every humor piece uses at least one. And I'm going to read these to you. Yeah, the first one is irony. It's when the literal meaning is the opposite of the intended meaning. Character is when a comedic character acts out clearly defined traits and a joke happens. Shock, sex, swearing, gross out humor, anything that's impolite and mixed company. Hyperbole, which is exaggeration to the utmost. Wordplay, any kind of fun you have with words, think puns. A lot of great pieces out there are very punny. Reference is another funny filter. It's a relatable observation that readers have seen, heard, or experienced what the author is describing. And that goes back to the cliches or the tropes. You could write a satire piece about romance novels, or there's too many Christmas movies on Hallmark Channel, things like that. Madcap, that's absurdism, non sequiturs, crazy made words and descriptions. Parody, which we talked about, poking fun at some other entertainment product. Analogy, finding similarities between two very different things. Misplaced focus, which is a difficult one sometimes to filter through, but it's when the writer intentionally focuses on the wrong thing or something that shouldn't matter. And then the last funny filter is meta humor. It's using humor itself, or the idea of humor, as a comedic target. And I like meta humor. That's one of my favorite ones. So those are some strategies for writing satire. And I have a list here. In the chat, I am going to put a link to two websites that offer a list of places you can publish your satire pieces in. I'll read some of these to you. So there's McSweeney. Everyone wants to get McSweeney. It's kind of difficult to get into. They do take a lot of pieces, but they do have a high bar. They are great though. Almost all these pieces except for one, or all these places except for one, will get back to you within 7 to 10 days. They're very quick. They're very quick response. It's usually a short response. Thank you, but no thanks. Thanks for letting us read this. We're not going to take it. As you can tell us the type of rejections I'm getting sometimes. You have McSweeney's. That's probably the top dog. You also have Shouts and Murmurs in the New Yorker. That's the other one. That one will take 3 months to get back to you. It pays $325 from what I hear if you get in there. And if you get accepted by Shout the New Yorker, then you have a direct line to the editor and you don't have to wait 3 months for your future pieces. So if you can get your foot in the door on that one, that's great. McSweeney's, it's a standalone site. I think it pays anywhere from $30 to $50 published piece. You have the Slackjaw, the Belladonna, Reductress, Points in Case, Jane Austen's Wastebasket, The Haven, Greener Pastures, Robot Butt, Muddy 251, which is a place for, if you like to write short pieces, for pieces that are 251 words or shorter. You even have specific places like the Daily Bonnet, which is a Mennonite specific satire publication. So if you have any great Mennonite jokes or satire pieces, that would be a place for you to publish. Like I said, I'll put a link in here. Points in Case did a great link resource list for everyone. And so did Caitlin Kunkel, who is a co-founder of the Belladonna. She listed a list of humor and satire websites that you can submit your writing to. So let me get the links and put that in the chat function. And that is what I have for this workshop so far. Now I'd like to take questions.
All right, so while you're putting those in the chat, I'm going to scroll back up because we did have some early on, and I think I kind of remember the context. So let me, for some of them, hold on. All right, so this is when you were talking about satire and parody. So we got 3 that were kind of when that was going on. So one of them is, may I ask if satire is always intentional? Innocent observations may never be satire because they say it as it is.
In my view, satire is intentional because you are picking a target that you are criticizing or commenting. So it's, it's like I said, satire it can be related to something that happened in the news within 48 hours, or it can be a common trope. But I think it is intentional. You're making your voice about it, your feelings about something. So I think it is intentional.
All right, so the next one is, would Randy Rainbow be satire or parody?
Randy Rainbow is great. I think, well, he's one of those that, like I said, parody and satire cross streams a lot. And I think he can be both. I think he's a parody of Broadway musicals, as a satirical, but he also does satire on politicians. So he's kind of both. That's a hard one. I think it depends on what song he's doing, who he's lampooning, how he's doing it.
Okay, let's see. Scroll down here. What's your favorite premise that you've created?
My favorite premise that premise I've created. I really like the one I talked about where I was the bag of chips caught in the vending machine. I like to take the viewpoint of an inanimate object a lot of the time. I wrote a story, I think, I don't know if you saw it, Jennifer, Teresa saw it, but on the book that you, I'm probably mispronouncing my title, but on the book you read in college to impress that one girl. So, I like to take the viewpoint of an inanimate object and talk from their viewpoint.
I'm not sure if I'm going to say this word right. Malapropisms, could they be unintentional satire?
I think so. I think I mean, what your subconscious is kind of coming out there, and like you're unpurposely saying how you feel or believe about something, and that, yeah, I think they can be. I think so, and I think it's great if you come up with that malapropism, write that down. Always, that's the other thing people talk about stand-up comedians. You should always carry a notepad with you, something to write down, because you never know what's going to come out of your mouth or what's going to come out of your friend's mouth when you're having dinner or drinks one night. You want to write this stuff down. You might have an idea, like I'm bad at it, but I try to keep a notepad next to my table, because I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have an idea, and like, oh, that'll be a funny piece or something to write about, and I'll go take a shower and it's already gone. So or I'll wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. I'm like, I'll remember that. And I wake up and it's gone.
So here, this is some questions about submitting your work.
Okay.
When you are rejected, are some places better with constructive feedback than others?
I would. So with McSweeney's, with Slackjaw, with Points and Case, they get so many submissions. They usually, it's just usually a one line. They're not going to offer you any constructive criticism. They will just say, "Thank you for letting us read this. It's not for us. We enjoyed reading this piece." They're usually pretty nice about it. We enjoyed reading this, but we're not going to take it this time. The closest I got to McSweeney's with any kind of criticism was, "We enjoyed reading your piece, but we're already going to publish something in this under the same subject." So I was like, "Oh, I was so close." And I was like, 2 weeks earlier, maybe I would have gotten in there. Jane Austen's Wastebasket, the publisher of that, she's really into literature and history, and she offered constructive criticism. She sent my piece back with a few edits, saying, "You want to make, here are my suggested edits. Make those, and I'll go ahead and publish your piece." So it just depends on who you're working with, how many pieces are getting. Some of the, like with the Haven, once you kind of get in the door with them, and you can just directly publish kind of to their site. They will, they do have they look at your piece, but once you kind of get in their good graces, it's a lot easier to get published by them. And yeah.
Can you estimate your acceptance versus rejection rate?
I probably get rejected like 95% of the time. It's just with anything. You just got to keep writing. And the great thing about satire and humor is there are so many sites nowadays, thanks to the internet, of course, that can publish. You can find a home for your piece. And there are so many specific places. Like if your piece, like I said, Jane Austen's Wastebasket, she likes to focus on literature and history. So if your piece is about literature and history, well, she's probably going to be more ready to read that and publish it.
And I will say that rejection rate is not unusual for like whatever genre of writing that you do. That's pretty standard.
Yeah, you just got to keep doing it, and then just know that. And the great thing about Medium.com I want to talk about is they have a paywall. So if you publish something on Slackjaw, it's put behind a paywall. However, they will send you a link, a friends and family link, so anyone can read it for free. But the people who read it behind the paywall, they've paid money to get access to this paywall, and you get part of that revenue stream. So your story is on Slackjaw forever, as long as you want it, and it's always making money if people are reading it. And so it can go anywhere. I think the most I made 1 month on Medium was $7, but then last month I made 2 cents. So it just kind of like, and it kind of keeps you going. Like, I got to keep publishing. So that's what I like about Medium is and publishing or finding places on there, because your piece is always kind of making you money. It's not the one, here's the $30, the end. But with McSweeney's, you'll get that $30, but you also get the notoriety. Like, I've been in McSweeney's. Like, I've been in the New Yorker. I've been in the Atlantic. I've been in something.
Okay, let's see. I keep thinking that if I record my ideas as they are happening, I would write more. Do you ever use something like a tape recorder?
I have. I keep telling myself that I will use my phone, my voice app on my phone to record my ideas, because I'm driving. When I used to commute a lot more, you have those thoughts in your head. I would have a lot more thoughts. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would write. I really like screenwriting and script writing, and so to me, saying the lines out loud. So I think I would write more if I would just keep my phone nearby and it's like read the lines like I'm an actor, and then come back and transcribe those lines, or have it transcribed for me. So it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to keep your phone or a notepad, just something nearby to capture your thoughts.
Okay. Can you submit a piece to multiple sites at the same time, or do you have to wait for a rejection or acceptance before resubmitting?
It depends on what you are submitting. If you are submitting to McSweeney's and it's a topical piece, you can submit that to multiple places that run in topical pieces, because it's topical. You want to get it out there. This news story has just happened, but you have to let the editors know up front. You have to say, you don't have to tell them where you've submitted. If you just say, I have submitted this piece to multiple outlets, I will let you know the outcome. I'll let you know the decision. So if you get accepted by one, you immediately have to write the other 4 places you submitted it to and let them know that, hey, this has been accepted. Please pull my submission. But you can also, like, I keep using McSweeney's over, because you can submit a topical piece, but you can also submit a regular evergreen piece. The evergreen piece, you will have to wait until you get notification of rejection or acceptance before submitting another one. It's just because they get so many submissions every day.
That makes total sense. All right. Any sites that you would encourage us to avoid submitting to for any reason?
Ooh. I've always made it my policy to never submit to a place that makes you pay to play. So don't ever submit to any publication online or in print that says you have to pay a fee to get published, because that's vanity publishing. I mean, if you want to, you can. That's my only recommendation right there. I haven't come across anything that's been bad. I've come across some places that don't respond sometimes in a timely manner, but sometimes you just send an email and they'll get back to you. But no one's really mean in the humor industry.
What do you think about self-publication?
I think it's great nowadays. I think, like I said, going back to Medium, if you have a piece, you can start your own magazine or your own. Medium is kind of like your own blog. You can just kind of publish your own pieces there, and you start getting a readership from that way. The great thing about the publications is they promote your piece. They send out weekly newsletters and help get eyes on your piece, so you can kind of make that change. But if you can't find a place for it, just publish it yourself. I've self-published on Medium just some of my fiction pieces that weren't really humor. Just dip my toe in the water and see what kind of readership and eyes I get on it.
All right, last question of the evening. Who are your favorite Dallas satire writers?
Dallas satire writers. Dallas satire writers. I just read a piece by Lauren Davis. She's a stand-up in Dallas. She just published a piece in the Belladonna. It was misstating the title. It was German words for when you come out of the pandemic, something like that. And it was just all these made-up German words, because Germans have a word for everything. So it was great. I'm trying to think of some other people who write. Jonathan Motley is in my writing group. He's written a few pieces for Slackjaw. John Robinson. She's another writing teacher. She's written pieces. Scriven Bernard. These are people in my writing group. So I'm kind of thinking that. Trying to think of anybody else in Dallas. I think they'll hand it that writes a lot. I think that's the thing about the humor writing is, once Dallas Comedy House shut down, and we all went into our COVID homes, I kind of turned to the writing. I didn't do a lot of humor writing before. I did mainly sketch writing, but to be performed. So I kind of enclosed, and so I started like meeting online, doing Zoom calls with other writers, and we just started kind of getting together and critiquing others' work and submitting to places.
Got to pivot.
Yeah, got to pivot. I like it. I think it's helped me to become a better sketch writer and a better writer in other pieces as well.
Well, I think that's great. And thank you so much for everybody who joined us today. And thanks, Jason. This was really great and informative. Our next writing workshop will be in August, and we will be discussing food writing. Please keep an eye out on our website calendar at fortworthlibrary.org for more information about that upcoming program. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, and I will send those links to, I'll send you an email with those links in case you didn't get them out of the chat so that you guys have them. Thank you. Bye-bye.